the gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
What a Lent. Who would have thunked it? Who would have thought on Ash Wednesday when we heard the words, "Remember you are dust, and to dust you will return." And we had those ashes smeared into our foreheads, that those words would become so vivid for us, 3D in more ways than we could have ever imagined. This is a Lent to end all Lents. Who would have thought when we followed Jesus into the wilderness at the very beginning of Lent, actually were sent into this wilderness with him, that it would look like it does? That a little tiny virus just trying to do its own thing would turn our world upside down and inside out. Our businesses, our pocketbooks, our relationships, our education, even our churches, and leave in its wake so much anxiety, so much fear, and grief. No one of us the same, and not ever again. And maybe that's not such a bad thing. You and I, we are square in the middle of wilderness just now. And wilderness is a place of disruption. The wilderness is disorienting. It's isolating, and it's dangerous. Even just hearing the story we just heard could be so disorienting. What is clear is that the story we just heard, Jesus is interrupting and disrupting the order that the community knows so well, what they had become so used to, the way things are, the way the church understood itself, everything. Now disrupting this order that the community had come to know so well. Listen to his final words to that religious leader, those religious leaders. He says, "I came into this world for judgment, so that those who do not see may see, and that those who do see may become blind." Disruption, indeed. Wilderness is known for disruption, even confusion. And it's almost as if this mud that Jesus grabs from the ground and uses to heal brings with it, that mud brings with it the whole of the wilderness with him into community, giving them a tiny taste of how this kingdom will truly emerge through the stuff of this world. And make no mistake about it, my friends, wilderness carries its own emotions. But most of us believe that wilderness emotions were not to be seen. Cry with the door closed. Don't dwell on the negative. Chin up, kid. We've been here before. But I'm here to tell you today, the wilderness is here, and it's here to interrupt your previously scheduled programming. And sweeping the truth of that under the rug has never gotten us very far. Let me say it as clearly as I can to you. You deserve a good cry. You deserve a good cry. It's okay to have a good cry. How can we not? And let me also say as clearly as I can that those tears that cleanse your eyes like that happened to that blind man in the gospel stories, those tears that cleanse your eyes. At the bottom of those tears, you will see the truth. At the bottom of every tear, there is this open space inside of us where we can finally see the truth of who we are and who we're not, and who God is and who God's not. But you have to cry first. Let me ask you, what wilderness emotions are you afraid to let loose? If you were to open the doors of your heart, what truth might come out? But in the midst of all that disruption and disorientation and isolation and danger, in the midst of it all, the wilderness does something more. And this comes back to that gospel story. The wilderness gives us a new perspective. Like that man who was blind, but now sees. The wilderness is a place where we can participate in healing, even in our own healing and the healing of others. And through the wilderness, as we sang, through the wilderness, through all the disruptions and disorientations, through the wilderness, through it, not around it, not in spite of it, but through the wilderness, we are shepherded and comforted by divine love in ways we can't even see. We rarely enter the wilderness willingly, but hopefully through our wandering, we remember who we are and whose we are. I said it every Sunday of Lent so far. In the wilderness, more than anywhere, we remember who we are and whose we are. The wilderness itself can become sacred, even as it remains dangerous. There is no wilderness space too harsh or threatening for God's love. When I place myself in that man's shoes, that blind man now sees in his shoes, I imagine myself receiving Jesus' command to go beyond what is familiar into territory unknown, and to become an active participant in my own ongoing healing and transformation, to surrender myself to a death of sorts, one that forces me to submerge myself into God's murky, living waters so I can once again be reborn and awaken to a world with new eyes. At my core, I believe that the wilderness provides an opportunity for us to declare what it is we believe. It will never be clearer than it is right now. What it is that we believe about life, about love, again, about ourselves, and the one who is love. It gives us an opportunity to declare what we believe, and this declaration can be painful and it can be hard. But I also believe that those moments are some of the most transformative moments of our lives, for it is very different to say we believe in a God who walks with us through the valleys as opposed to the mountaintops. To say I believe in a God who is with me in the valleys where it's way harder to see than it is from up there when everything's going just fine according to order and plan. This is when it's tested. To declare it in a valley is to make a radical declaration of faith that will not only shape our worldview, but shape the faith of those around us. And so I draw on this declaration. I draw on this declaration and declare, even in the darkest nights, even in seasons of death and loss, God is with us. God is with us. God is with us in our doctor's offices and in therapy sessions. God was always with us in our miscarriages and failed marriages. God was with us all the time. And God is with us when the news feels too hard to hear, and in grief that feels too heavy to carry. God is with us in every tear we dare to shed these days. No matter where we go, no matter what the wilderness we find, God is with us. I declare that. I trust it. However, for these days, the road gets hard. I will carry those words close and trust them with every fiber of my being. God is with us. God is with us. May we believe. May we trust that. God, help our lack of trust, our unbelief, so that we might awaken with new eyes. Welcome to wilderness.